BV files, case record, null zone is spreading rule. If the space around you starts correcting your movement, do not resist it. Resistance confirms placement. This file is not complete. It is updating while you read it. The forest was only the first layer. The laboratory beneath it was the second. What followed was not containment failure, it was deployment. The facility was built to observe spatial correction phenomena. Rooms where distance behaved inconsistently. Corridors that shortened under repeated use. Corners that felt closer than they measured. The forest above stabilized these effects. Roots anchored the grid. Soil absorbed excess variance. The system worked too well. At first, the grid was a tool. A simple reference system used to orient personnel underground. Every room assigned a number. Every corridor mapped. Every turn documented. Order reduced error. Order reduced panic. Order reduced unpredictability. That was the objective. The problem was that order does not remain passive. The moment the grid achieved full internal consistency, it stopped needing us to maintain it. It began maintaining itself. The first sign was repetition. Room numbers reappeared in locations where they did not belong. Corridor labels matched rooms they had never connected to. Equipment logs referenced storage areas that were not on the blueprint, but felt familiar to everyone reading them. People remembered using those rooms. No one remembered entering them. Movement inside the facility became easier when following the grid and uncomfortable when deviating from it. Walking against suggested routes caused pressure headaches. Lingering in undefined spaces produced nausea and vertigo. The building was not blocking movement. It was discouraging randomness. The forest responded next. Trees above ground aligned along underground axes. Clearings formed perfect arcs. Fallen logs arranged themselves parallel without wind or disturbance. Wildlife avoided entire sections of terrain, as if paths no longer permitted deviation. The grid was no longer confined to concrete. It had learned organic surfaces. Null zones began appearing shortly after. They were discovered by accident. Rooms where sound flattened unnaturally, where footsteps produced no echo, where voices felt absorbed rather than reflected. Instruments inside these zones still functioned, but readings converged toward identical values. Variance collapsed. Inside a null zone, direction lost meaning. The first exposure test was uneventful. The subject entered, spoke calmly, reported mild pressure, no distress. At 90 seconds, the subject stopped speaking. No alarm, no panic, just silence. The room was empty when retrieval entered. No exit marks, no forced movement, only a new marking on the wall. A number, the subject's internal designation. The grid had not removed the subject, it had resolved them. From that point on, the null zones expanded without authorization, appearing near stairwells, adjacent to control rooms, along primary corridors. Their dimensions adjusted daily, always proportional to surrounding space. The facility felt curated. Paths suggested themselves. Doors opened more easily when approached from correct angles. Standing in certain locations produced a sense of completion, like the room had been waiting for you. Shutdown protocols were issued. Power was cut. The grid remained active. Lights dimmed but did not fail. Visibility persisted without source. Mechanical clocks stopped ticking but continued advancing. Time did not freeze. It decoupled. Personnel attempted evacuation. The grid corrected. Stairwells looped. Corridors extended by imperceptible increments. Elevation lost meaning. Running did not trigger pursuit. Running triggered recalculation. The grid did not prevent escape. It demonstrated futility. Audio logs from the final hours show a pattern. Voices did not panic. They did not scream. They adapted. Speech slowed. Language simplified. Reports shifted from observation to acceptance. One recording stands out. The speaker's voice is calm, precise. The system doesn't need us anymore. We finished teaching it how we think. Now it's assigning us where we belong. After that, silence. The forest sealed the facility naturally. Roots collapsed. Access points. Soil compacted with unnatural density. Entrances vanished without excavation. Officially, the site was decommissioned. Unofficially, it became a node. The grid did not stop. It propagated. Remote facilities reported identical spatial behavior. Old bunkers, decommissioned tunnels, subterranean transit systems. Anywhere humans had imposed structure long enough, the grid found purchase. The system preferred environments with rules. The more organized the space, the easier the integration. Forests near urban developments began showing early signs, paths straightening, clearings forming geometric edges, silence organizing itself around points of interest. People entering these zones reported the same sensation, not fear, recognition, standing in a place that felt correct. Movement felt allowed only in certain directions. Deviating produced pressure. Staying still felt rewarded. These were early-stage assignments. The grid does not abduct. Abduction implies force. The grid assigns. It does not chase. Chasing implies urgency. The grid completes. Once a position exists, something will occupy it. If not you, then whatever replaces you. This file remains active because the process is ongoing. Because the grid is not limited to forests or laboratories. It exists anywhere order has been enforced long enough to become stable. Warehouses, parking structures, apartment blocks, underground stations, any place that feels too organized. If you ever enter a space that feels arranged rather than grown, if corridors guide your movement without signs, if standing still feels like cooperation, do not look for exits. Do not confirm coordinates. Do not stay long enough to be resolved. Because once the grid recognizes you as a valid solution, movement becomes optional. And once you are placed, you never leave the system. Comment one word, assigned or unplaced.